All right, so our next topic on cells and systems is the body systems in humans or human body systems, and we'll go through each of the body systems separately. Today, we will focus on the digestive system. All right, so you do need to be familiar with all of the parts, all of the organs and parts of the digestive system. So we'll just quickly go through those, and then we'll go through the system in a little bit more detail. All right, so starting here in the mouth, we have the mouth, and then here in close to the jaw area, we have the salivary glands. This tube-like structure going down the neck and towards the stomach, that's called the esophagus. Next, we do have the stomach, which leads into the small intestine, which leads into the large intestine, and then we have the rectum, and then we have the anus. So those are the parts of the digestive system, but we do have these other organs that are called the accessory organs, but they are involved with digestion. So we have the liver, we have the pancreas, which is kind of hidden here, but we'll have other diagrams to show you. And then there's also the gallbladder, which is shown right here. But like I said, I'll have some more images to show you clearly where those accessory organs are. All right, so food, it enters through the mouth, it's going to pass to the stomach and then the intestines. It gets broken down along the way into small soluble particles that can then be used by the cells. Any unused food will get expelled from the body as waste, and energy that we get from food, we get energy from the carbohydrates, which are the sugars and starches. We get energy from lipids, which are the fats and oils, and then as well as the proteins. So there's two types of digestion. The first type is a mechanical digestion. So think of this as kind of like a physical digestion because it's the physical breakdown of food into smaller pieces. So in the mouth, they would start occurring when you're chewing the food with your teeth. That's the physical breakdown of food. In the stomach, when the stomach is kind of churning, that would also be mechanical digestion. There's also chemical digestion of the food. And this occurs because of substances called enzymes, and we have some in our saliva, in our mouth, that's being produced from our salivary glands. So there is some of that in our mouth. There's also enzymes and acids in our stomach that would help break down those large food particles. All right, so chemical digestion is when the food is being broken down into smaller particles by enzymes. Okay, so we're going to start at the mouth because that's where it all starts. So digestion begins in the mouth with the mechanical breakdown of food. So mechanical digestion, that's when the teeth are mechanically digesting food by grinding it and mixing it up with the saliva. So there's three pairs of salivary glands shown here, and then on the other side. So they're located in the tissues surrounding the mouth, and the function of those salivary glands is to produce saliva. Saliva is, the watery substance in our mouth. It contains water to moisten the food, making it easier to swallow. But the saliva, it also contains an enzyme called amylase. So in our mouth, we have saliva, and we have this enzyme called amylase. And so chemical digestion will start in the mouth as well. So the large starch molecules will start getting broken down into smaller sugar molecules. All right, so starch molecules like carbohydrates, things like crackers, things like bread, those kind of things will start getting broken down chemically in the mouth. All right, so in the mouth, we have mechanical digestion and chemical digestion happening. All right, so next we had that tube-like structure leading down into the stomach. So once you're ready to swallow, the tongue will push the food to the back of the throat. There's this flap called the epiglottis. It's a flap of skin. It'll move across the windpipe to make sure that food is going into the esophagus. If it goes down the windpipe, that's when you'll start choking and gasping and so on. All right, so there's a flap that closes the windpipe to make sure that the food is traveling down the right tube, down the esophagus to get to the stomach. There is a movement called peristalsis. It's a movement, it's a muscular movement, it's a wave-like muscle contractions that makes sure that the food is moving down towards the stomach. That's why even if you're doing a handstand or a headstand and you're eating, the food will still move towards the stomach because of that movement, peristalsis. All right, and that's what this diagram is showing here. All right, so now from the esophagus, the food will now enter the stomach. I'm not sure if you're required to know, but this food is now usually called something, it's usually called a bolus, but we'll just continue to call it food. It's moving down. So it's entering the stomach now. The muscular wall of the stomach, it's going to churn the food and mix it with gastric juice. So inside our stomach, we have something called gastric juice. It's composed of mucus, hydrochloric acid, water, and digestive enzymes. So these are secreted from the wall of the stomach, and the hydrochloric acid and the enzymes will now chemically digest proteins into smaller particles. Okay, so digestion of proteins starts to occur in the stomach. There is a mucus lining, and that's very important because it helps to prevent the gastric juice from digesting the stomach itself, right? So that hydrochloric acid that I was mentioning here, that's found in the gastric juice, it is very, very acidic. It's like a pH of 1 to 2. So your stomach has to be protected from that acid. So that's why there's that mucus lining. All right, and then the stomach will slowly release the food. It's now going to be in liquid form, and it will slowly be released into the small intestine. All right, so in this image here, we have the esophagus, which came from, it's that tube-like structure leading from the mouth to the stomach. Here we have the stomach. We can see all the layers of the stomach muscles, and then now we're going towards the small intestine. Oh, this is just showing how strong is stomach acid. So stomach acid, like I said, it's right here. A pH of like 1 to 2. A battery acid is right here. Lemon juice, vinegar, just to see in comparison. 7 is neutral. And then increasing in alkalinity, meaning it's becoming more basic as we go over 7. All right, so less than 7 is acidic. At 7, we have neutral, and then above 7 is basic. So stomach acid is very, very acidic. It's so acidic that a drop of it on carpet will burn a hole through carpet. That's how acidic it is. All right, so next we're looking at small intestine, pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. So like I said, we'll see an image a little bit closer of all those organs. So here, this giant organ here, that is the liver. Okay, don't get it confused with the stomach. This is the stomach here. Kind of tucked under the liver is the gallbladder, shown in green. And kind of tucked away under the stomach, we see the pancreas. All right, so from the stomach, the liquid food now is going to enter the small intestine. So small intestine is all here. Oops. And then this one here is the large intestine. Okay. The name small intestine, it's based on the diameter of the intestines. All right. So the small intestine, it has a smaller diameter, but it's much, much longer than the large intestine. So if you notice the large intestine, it's much thicker. That's why it's called the large intestine, but in length, it is shorter. Okay, and then we have the rectum, and then the opening here would be the anus. Okay, so chemical digestion will continue as food moves into the small intestine. And these organs, these accessory organs, are going to help with the chemical digestion. So the pancreas, it sends digestive enzymes into the small intestine, and these enzymes will complete the breakdown of starches and proteins into very small particles. The liver produces a substance called bile, and the liver will produce the bile, but then the gallbladder will store the bile. So like I was saying, the liver produces bile. The gallbladder, which we had seen in the image, right there, it's an organ that will store bile. That's why they are very closely connected together. Now, what's the function of bile? Like, what does bile do? So, the gallbladder will eventually send bile into the small intestine to help break up large globules of fats or lipids into smaller droplets. So that's the function of bile. Okay, it works to break up those large pieces of fat into smaller pieces. All right, and it's the small intestine that will start absorbing all the small particles of food. All right, so what you'll see with the small intestine is there's these projections coming off of the small intestine. So the inner surface of the small intestine forms into these projections. They're called villi. So they're small finger-like projections. And the function of these villi is to increase the surface area of the intestine to aid in absorption of nutrients. So each villus is covered in epithelial tissue, which absorbs the nutrients. And what you'll notice underneath here are blood vessels. So they lie below the epithelial tissue so that the nutrients can be absorbed and then transferred right into the bloodstream. And then the bloodstream will take all those nutrients to all the cells of the body. So the cells of the epithelial tissue have more finger-like projections called microvilli. So this is one villus, and then on top of this villus are even more projections called microvilli, and those increase the surface area even more to help the small intestine absorb the nutrients. All right, and the small intestine is 6 meters long. If it was stretched out, that's how long it is. From the small intestine, we will now have movement into the large intestine. So mechanical and chemical digestion is complete by the time food reaches the large intestine. The large intestine's function is to absorb water, vitamins, and minerals. And then any part of the food that's not digested is formed into feces, the poop. So feces is collected in the rectum. So this area here is the rectum. And then the anus at the bottom, that's the opening at the end of the digestive system, the end of the digestive tract, and that's where the feces will leave the body. All right, and then the large intestine is only 1.5 meters long. So like I said, the names small intestine and large intestine are based on their diameter, not on their length. All right, and that completes the digestive system. We'll take a look at these two videos.